Hello, this is Robyn Foss, and welcome to my next video, Separated Titles. This technique started with me adding a title on a page. I was titling it Capturing the Glow. I combined both a text box and a text shape, and the text shape was filled with one paper with white stroke around it. And I was really wishing there could be more color since this page had a lot of color on it. It just seemed kind of blah, just being one color. I figured out how to separate the two parts of this text shape and created what I call a separated title. Filled one with one paper and added a 3D edge and the other with another paper. And this is that technique on the final page. In the process of creating the separated title, you're going to learn more about the font manager, about creating text shapes, outliner shapes, as well as editing shapes. When you're looking for a font to use for this technique, you're going to want something that's got multi-parts to it and that are not touching. And if you need to look for more fonts, there's a couple of websites that can work for you. One that I found is called Creative Fabrica, and right on their homepage there's a freebies tab with free fonts. And you can see there's 103 pages or more of free fonts. So you can get those. And then also dafont.com. There's many free fonts out there that you can get. All of the fonts that I used in my samples were from dafont.com. So if you don't own them, you can go ahead and go out and download them. And one other resource, a Chrome extension called WordMark. That's WordMark with a K.it. It's a Chrome extension. And you would get to it up here after you add it. And you say open WordMark. And you can type in the title. So I typed in separated titles. And you can see I filtered down to just the ones that I think will work. And you can see why I think they'll work. They have different pieces that are not touching. And this one gives you a good example of why one of my tips is to go all caps. Because some of the fonts, the technique or the detail will only look correct if it's in the capital letter. The lowercase doesn't have the same pieces. Okay, so let's go into Artisan. I give you a handout to do this, so we have this video as well as the handout. The handout has 2 pages. Page 1 is step-by-step instructions as well as some screenshots and some tips. Page 2 gives you 9 different font samples where I'm using this technique. Let's take a look at them now. There's Motion, Waterway, Bugbear, Driveler, Magnifico, and then on the right there's Starfish, Cimice, which are 3 layers, Worldwide, and Sunset Boulevard. After you figure out what fonts you might want to use, one tip I give you in your handout is to create a font group, this technique, layered fonts or 3D fonts, however you want to call it. And to do that, you'd want to go into your content manager. So to get there, you go to your welcome screen, manage content. It'll open up a new tab. And then up here, you click on fonts. Then you'll want to create a new group and type in the name that you're calling it. So whether it's 3D fonts or layered fonts, then click OK. So I'm going to go out to the one that I created, layered fonts. And these are the 9 fonts that I showed you samples of. And to add them, you would double click or select one and hit add. And to remove, if you change your mind, you would double click or hit remove. Then when you're on the page and you're picking your fonts, I'll show you how to access that font group. Okay, so let's go to page 1 of our directions and look at our other tips. We talked about the font group already, about using all caps. You can see there a sample font of Starfish and how when I'm referring to layered fonts are being 2 pieces that don't touch. And also remember that when you're editing a shape, you can't edit the shape of a text shape, but you can edit an outliner, and that's why we're using both. Our first section, we're going to create both the text shape and the outliner. To do that, we're going to go to the Insert ribbon the text section and then shape. And then we'll type in title. I have the caps lock on. It just picked the default font that I have, and so I'm going to go down to these groups, find the layered fonts, and scroll down. I'm going to do Starfish, and we're going to do 0.5 thickness on the stroke. Leave the fill as is. You basically find the place you want to put it on your page. Hold down Shift to lock the aspect ratio and resize it. So this might be a good thing to do at the end of a page, because that way you're going to know where it's going to fit, as well as know what kind of colors or papers you might want to fill it with. Next we'll hit Create, and then it's still selected. We're going to add that outliner shape, still on the Insert ribbon, but further over in the other section we're going to do Outliner. And then we're going to go ahead and change that stroke down to 0.5 as well. One of the tips I do give you is to zoom in when you're working on this. It makes it so much easier to see what you're doing. And you can do that down here. You can either drag the bar over, or you can click on the drop-down menu and pick a particular number that you want. So I zoom to 200%, and it helps me to see what I'm working with. Okay, so now we're down to step 5 in our directions, where we're editing the shape. To edit the shape, let's go ahead and hide our outliner shape for just a minute. I want to show you why we need the outliner. If I right click and hit shape, edit shape's not an option, so that's why we need it. Also, let's slide it down. In the directions, I do give you a tip to pay attention to what part of the text shape has the most detail. And here you can see the polka dots show, but then in the outliner they don't. So that lets me know I want to get rid of this in the outliner so that it shows through. Okay, let's line them back up. I'm going to use my quick access toolbar to do that. Click away, and now we're going to edit shape. One thing to pay attention to, are my lines touching? And they're not. So you can see there's space between the inner and outer pieces. We're good to go. And then we know that we want to get rid of the inside. So I'm going to select my outliner. And you can do that over here in the Elements panel or on your page. Just want to make sure you have the right one selected. And then right click, Shape, Edit Shape. And then we're going to click the inside one. You can see the dots are there. That's the correct one. Remove Figure. Just repeat that with each of the letters, clicking in the center, remove figure until it's gone. Now we can zoom in just a little bit further and make sure that our outer shape isn't wonky. So right here you can see how the blue is showing a little bit. And so maybe I put in a new dot and I drag it out. So you can kind of play around with it, maybe make this straight. So play and make sure that there isn't too much wrong with the shapes on your outside of your letters. You will find that sometimes, like I've done this same sample in practice rounds for this video and not had to edit at all, and sometimes I had to edit a lot. For the purposes of this sample, I think we're good to go. So we're going to say OK. The next step is going to be going to the bottom to do the fill and finish. But let's just take a minute to look at the sample in your handout. The font there is Bugbear, and you can see so much detail in that text shape is lost in the outliner. So again, you know that you want to remove that inside piece of your outliner so that text shape with all that detail will show through. So fill and finish, steps 6 and 7. To fill, you have your item selected. You can go up here to the quick access toolbar and fill. You can fill it with color or paper. I'm going to go ahead and use paper, and I'm going to select one from this Canvas Cardstacks Paper Pack number 15 by Designer Digitals. You can pick the portion of the paper you want, and then I'll pick the next one over here in the content panel, papers, and then Canvas Cardstacks. Let's see, fill selected shape, and you can make it bigger or smaller till you're happy. All right, so it's filled. Lastly, you would add detail. That can include changing the stroke, adding a 3D edge. Again, a 3D edge can be an effect or a filter. Let's do it as an effect. I went up here to the Format ribbon, Effects, Custom, add an effect, 3D edge. You would adjust the sliders until you're happy with the look, and then hit OK. You can also add a shadow and change the stroke. All right, so that is sample number 1, and if you kind of get the gist of it, go ahead and start playing. But if you want to see a couple more examples, keep watching. The next one I want to show you is the font that I created 3 layers on, and that was Cimice. All right, so Insert Ribbon, Text Section, Text Shape. We'll type in Title, and then we're going to go to that font. So Layered Fonts, Cimice. We're going to leave the fill for now, 0.5. Let's make it, we'll zoom out, hold down Shift. I'm going to resize it. I'm going to make it big so you can really see what I'm doing, and hit Create. All right, and then we'll kind of zoom in a little bit. We're going to add, you can see already, where's the detail? It's that center section again. We're going to insert outliner and then reduce that stroke. That can give us some space and see what we're working with. And we talked before about paying attention to whether or not the pieces are touching. And so you can see here, this one's touching. We need to make sure it's not. Also, see how that bottom edge and this one are way different. So sometimes that outliner doesn't exactly read shape correctly, and so you have to edit the shape. I'm going to go ahead and make sure those two are aligned again, and then we'll do some shape editing. Okay, I'm selecting that outliner shape. I'm right-clicking, Shape, Edit Shape. First, we're going to edit the wonky lines, and then we're going to remove the parts. It just works better to go in that order. So this outside shape, I'm going to right-click. I want to make all those lines straight. So that way I don't have to do each one individually. Click again, make all straight. It's not going to straighten all the letters, it's just the current selected shape. And one more. Click, right click, make all straight. Next, we're going to fix the wonky on the inside so to make sure this piece we want to remove is not touching. So I'm going to select that inner shape. I'm going to hover on this line, and I'm going to make straight. While it's still selected, I'm going to remove figure. Let's zoom in a little further, and you can see some of these pieces didn't come. So I'm going to go ahead and select those and hit remove figure. And I will say most of the time, it doesn't, like, you have to do this extra step. The last time I did this practice run, I didn't have to do it. Okay, and you can see it's not letting me grab this last one, even though we're like zoomed crazy amount in. When it won't let me grab this shape, it's always good to find workarounds. Let's zoom back out a bit. We're going to add a rectangle. And then what we're going to do is we're going to resize this rectangle so it kind of fits in that space where that one wonky shape is. You can even grab that little dot and get it. There we go. Move this in. I mean, it doesn't really need to be this big, but it's small enough it's going to do the job. Next thing I like to do is to right click on this selected shape. We're going to use blending, and then we're going to do remove selected. So what it's going to do is it's going to remove that part and everything behind it of the selected piece. So I hit remove. Now you can see that's gone. If I slide this over, it's back. You can still see it. And that invisible causes like an invisibility cloak. So I'm covering up that piece that it wouldn't let me edit out. So just a way around the issue. All right, let's move on. We're going to fix the wonky and then remove. So we're going to hover over the line, make straight, and then we're going to remove figure. Again, wouldn't really be a beginner technique, but in the process of playing with this, you're going to learn a little bit more about editing shapes and just kind of get familiar with the outliner. Fix the wonky. Now they're not touching. I can remove figure. All right, none of the little bits. Looks good. That's not touching, so I can just select and hit remove. No little bits. All right, let's go back out. To get the 3-piece like we have in the sample, what we're going to do is we're going to take this edited outliner shape, we're going to copy and paste it, and then we're going to line it back up. So use the 2nd and the 5th on your quick access toolbar, zoom back in. And what I found helpful is to go ahead and fill 2 of the shapes, and then when you're removing pieces, it's easier to see. And I also found it easier to remove the inside little piece rather than the outside on this. We'll start with the text shape and work our way up. So we can fill that with blue. And then we'll go up to the next one, and we can fill that with green. Actually, let's do this one here. Doesn't really matter, but there we go. Can't see it right now because it's covered. Now we're going to edit this top shape. We're going to right click on it, shape, edit shape. You want to make sure you have the correct one selected over here. Zoom in just a little bit more. I'm going to select this inner thin piece and I'm going to remove it. Inner thin piece, and I'm going to remove it and kind of just repeat that across. Remove figure, doing the thin piece. I've had more luck doing that. Okay, so now we have 3 distinct pieces. You can kind of see it more readily now. I will fill our last shape with bright green. And okay. And again, you can give it a shadow to give it some depth if you want. We'll do light. All right, pop up. There's 2 samples. Now, again, if you've got it and you're ready to roll, go ahead and start playing. But if you want to see this last sample, I'm going to talk about paying attention to some text shapes. Your letters run together, and that's the Sunset Boulevard was a sample of that for me, where I just couldn't separate the letters very easily. If that's the case, then you might want to do a letter at a time for your title. I've also found sometimes, like the more circular letters, the lines get so wonky I can't separate them, so you might want to just maybe change your word in your title if you can't get it to edit for you. Okay, so let me show you this last sample of what to do when your text shape letters run together. Insert text shape, and then we're going to do title, and we're going to change it to Sunset Boulevard. So we'll go down to our layered fonts, Sunset Boulevard, make it really big so you can see what I'm talking about. Make that stroke like we did all the other ones. Let's make it even bigger. Create, and I'll zoom in to help you see it. Okay, so you see where the lines run into each other? That's going to be difficult to work with. What I recommend is to instead, if you want to do this, either you can do a monogram with the multi-layer, or you could do 1 letter at a time. Do text shape, and you would do T, and you would do Sunset Boulevard, 0.5, create, and then you would just move on, text shape, I. Let me fix that font, that'll help me align that better. Kind of want those bases to be about the same width. Now I can align them, looks good. So I'm not going to do all the letters, but I just want you to see there's a workaround if the letters are running together. And then you would continue with the other steps. Separated titles is a fun way to play and add a finishing touch to your page. If you want more tips and ideas for working with text and titles on your page, think about signing up for one of my classes. I have an Artisan 6 Tool Time Class 101 offered in January and July. It's Mondays from 6 to 7 p.m. Central for $25, and it's 4-week class. So you get 4 one-hour lessons. Week 2, we talk about Text and Titles 101, text path, text shape, alpha set, fill shape with text, and text enhancement. And then in April and October, I offer Artisan 6 Tool Time 201. Week 2 of that class is called Text and Titles 201. And I covered a lot of ideas on types of titles you can use to add to your page, like staggered title, banners, tile, and journal strips, title and lines, font clouds, vertical text, and acrostic title. Well, thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.